read you a little piece from my new book, 20 Embodied Practices for Healing Trauma and Addiction using my felt sense polyvagal model. I think you'll find it interesting. Dissociation and/or addiction. While you may recognize that you're living in the trauma feedback loop much of the time, you may not experience yourself struggling with addictive behaviors. Some folks are aware of dissociating, but haven't identified any specific behaviors that are repetitive in an addictive way. That may be the case because you just haven't been aware of what they are. Let me give you an example. Sue was 20 years old when I began to see her for trauma therapy. While she didn't identify as having any addictive behaviors, she described horrific experiences of abuse that caused her to numb feelings and lose time in her day-to-day life. As therapy progressed, she shared memories of her father yelling and throwing dishes at dinner time. She would tremble with terror as she recalled traumatic memories. In a focusing session, her body took her back to an experience where, as a little girl, she was gazing down at the kitchen floor, counting the patterns in the red and white tiles over and over again. She realized that this behavior was helping her in some way, but she didn't know how. One day after that session, she became aware that even now, she would often sit on her couch in the living room and count the colored patterns on the carpet. This felt soothing at first, but often resulted in her falling asleep and missing school or watching endless hours of television. I explained to Sue that counting patterns was a repetitious behavior that could facilitate a dissociated state. The dinner table was a very unsafe and inescapable place. As her body surged into flight-fight, she unconsciously shifted into a dorsal shutdown state, aided by her counting behavior. Over time, an habitual feedback loop was created by the repetitious nature of counting. Counting helped her in the short term. It hurt her in the long term, and she couldn't stop doing it. Our definition of addiction. The good news is that because Sue became aware of the counting and how it induced a dorsal deadened state, she was able with time and FSPM practices to stop the counting behavior and to become more present in a ventral, socially engaged way. Sue would never have thought of counting as an addictive behavior, partly because she wasn't aware of it, and partly because for too long society has restricted the definition of addictions to be drug and alcohol related. But anyone who listens to the body knows that addictions come in all forms and sizes. Behavioral addictions follow the same neural pathways as substance addictions. Gazing at a fish tank, repeated rubbing of parts of your body, meditation, and prayer all are ways of inducing dissociated states if they're repeated enough to create the plastic paradox, a rut too big to easily escape.